Good afternoon, I'm Vashon Brown with the Midday News. Special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. A reminder as well that you can watch TVJ live by downloading our One Spot Media app in the Google Play Store or the App Store. That's the number 1, followed by the words Spot Media. An investigation has started to determine the cause of this morning's fire at the state-owned oil refinery Petrojam on Marcus Garvey Drive in St. Andrew. The fire, which started around 4 o'clock, is now contained. 3 units extinguished the blaze, and the teams from the Jamaica Fire Brigade and employees at Petrojam conducted cooling down operations. Energy Minister Dr. Andrew Wheatley will be visiting the refinery later today to assess the situation. In an interview with our news center this morning, Petrojam's Public Relations Officer Latoya Pennant said a tank caught fire. She added that no one was injured, and we'll have more on this story in Primetime News at 7. The strike by petroleum tanker drivers is over. They agreed to return to work this morning. The drivers refused to haul petrol yesterday to protest the delay in wage negotiations and the failure of the Ministry of Labour to hold a representational rights poll. They also wanted the Petroleum Tanker Drivers Association to be recognized as their trade union. General Secretary of the National Workers Union, Granville Valentine, says the decision to end the strike followed 2 meetings yesterday.
One is an official meeting. There is one that I regard as the ministry merely accommodating the tanker drivers who were disgruntled. And to the best of my understanding, the drivers were shown clearly a path that the claim is not a legitimate claim in terms of how it is structured or it was served. And as a result, they would have to wheel and come again. In other words, they will have to reserve any bargaining rights claim in a proper manner.
Meanwhile, due to the strike, some gas stations are now without petrol. President of the Jamaica Gasoline Retailers Association, Philip Kong, says the situation will improve today.
Maybe between 20 and 30% of the stations have been affected, and they should be back in operation by late afternoon. We have a few out in Mandeville, a few out in Montego Bay. But Montego Bay has its own depot, so as long as they're open and ready to refill, I think everything will be back to normal.
The Jamaica Urban Transit Company, JUTC, is exploring the possibility of using a different type of glass for its buses. This is in an attempt to minimize expenses when its buses are attacked. The move follows the stoning of 3 JUTC buses on Monday night in Bull Bay, St. Andrew and the Spanish Town, St. Catherine. There have been 60 such incidents since the start of the year. JUTC Managing Director Paul Abrams explained that no determination has been made on the value of the damage from the attacks, but complained that the problem is significant.
Those windows are very expensive. They're tempered glass and they're very expensive. In Europe, we were having a discussion with them the other day because they were so concerned as to why we were using so many windshields. And they manufacture windshields for new units. And all the units that some of their manufactured is not used as the amount that is used in Jamaica. So it's troubling. It's very troubling right now.
With over 1,000 motorbikes seized and over 900 persons prosecuted for failing to wear proper gear, security consultant Mark Shields says a lot more needs to be done to control motorbikes in the country. Speaking with TVJ News Tuesday afternoon, Mr. Shields said a process needs to be put in place to enforce the laws governing road safety in an effort to save lives.
I know that under the Road Traffic Act amendment that provisional licences will no longer be allowed, in that people have to be properly trained before they can use a motorcycle. But I think we all know, we're on the roads all of the time and we see some bikes literally terrorising other road users. They disobey every single road sign in the book. Many of them are still not wearing crash helmets. Many of them we've seen are probably kit bikes where they've been brought in barrels. So yes, I think a lot more should be done to control the use of bikes. But equally, I think that education is really important.
Tensions remain high in Jarrett Lane off Mountain View Avenue in St. Andrew this afternoon following the shooting of a child Tuesday evening. Residents blocked sections of the community shortly after the incident, but the roadblock was later cleared. It's reported that the child was hit during a shootout involving gunmen shortly before 7 o'clock Tuesday evening. It's the latest in a series of escalating violent incidents in the area over the past few weeks. Jarrett Lane has been in an ongoing gang feud with residents from the neighboring community of Oliver Road in East Kingston, and we'll have more details on the latest happenings in the East Kingston community in subsequent newscasts. 3 teenagers have been detained on suspicion of breaching the Firearms Act. The boys, whose ages range between 14 and 15, were arrested about 10:20 Monday night at the intersection of King Street and Port Royal Street. According to the Kingston Central Police, a patrol team observed the teenagers behaving suspiciously. They were searched and a homemade firearm and a 9mm round of ammunition were reportedly taken from one of them. Opposition leader Dr. Peter Phillips has shared more about his intention to appoint a new shadow cabinet. Dr. Phillips previously stated that he did not want to disturb the slate of spokespersons until after the budget debate. Speaking yesterday with Beyond the Headlines host Dion Jackson-Miller, Dr. Phillips outlined his expectations.
One of the issues I was expecting, and which would have a bearing on the range of persons to select and the assignments, was the likelihood of by-elections, which I expect soon, which would allow both for potential seats in the Senate to be filled and would also affect some of the assignments which could be made from the House of Representatives. So this is something that I expect will happen very shortly.
Dr. Phillips narrowed down an expected timeline.
So is it that you would be waiting until after those 2 by-elections?
Well, at least on the announcements, because I'm intending it to be drawn from the person serving in both the Senate and, more importantly, the House of Representatives.
The Jamaica Social Investment Fund, JSIF, is asserting that a rural economic development initiative, READY, is reaping rewards. JSIF Executive Director Omar Sweeney says the program has significantly cut Jamaica's import bill. The program recently came to an end, and that the opposition leader, Dr. Peter Phillips, says is disappointing.
A total of 22,000 farmers have benefited from the READY program, and they're more than willing to show their thanks. READY provides farmers with modern tools, proper infrastructure, and training. JSIF Managing Director Omar Sweeney says the READY program has served all kinds of farmers.
Through the drip irrigation program that you also saw in the video, 1,153 farmers benefited from that. They were in 13 communities across 5 parishes. And our partnership with the Maritime Institute have trained 2,000 fisher folks in basic seamanship and safety at sea.
Mr. Sweeney says the program has also saved Jamaica millions.
We have seen a 60% increase in the production of agricultural output, which actually contributed to the 16% growth in GDP in that sector and a reduction in Jamaica's food import bill of $6 million.
The program has come to an end, and the opposition leader, Dr. Peter Phillips, isn't pleased.
It was breaking a critical barrier by recognizing that the ordinary Jamaican farmer, not just the export-oriented farmer, was a vital part of the production system in the country. And so I'm disappointed that it has ended and that we haven't heard anything from the government officially about a replacement.
Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture, Donovan Stanberry, commented on the investments he says big companies are making in the farming sector. He says it's a clear sign of confidence in the economy, but
the truth is the sustainable growth, the enduring benefit of agriculture, we really will have that when communities are fully on board. And the way to rural development is to strengthen communities so that they can earn from themselves, not migrating to Kingston and Montego Bay, Dr. Chan, and adding to our problems of urban decay and squatting and all of that. Is to empower people in their own spaces to be able to make a decent living.
Dr. Horace Chang, Minister without portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister, was no less excited about the READY program, but disagrees with Mr. Stanbury's opinion about people inhabiting some areas. He says what Mr. Stanbury is encouraging could end up costing the government more in the long run.
I understand fully what Mr. Stanbury indicated of trying to keep Jamaicans on the land and ensure that the quality of life and income of farmers change. But some of those communities, Mr. Stanbury, need to be relocated. The truth is that there are some communities in Jamaica, it is better to find the fund, relocate them on better lands, and leave the agricultural road to go to and reforest some of those hillsides.
Kirk Wright, TVJ News.
And the time now for a look at what's coming up in this evening's Health Report.
In the next edition of the Health Report, we speak to a diabetic who uses exercise to control his medical condition.
Then when she checked my blood sugar level, it was 29.5. And then the only thing the doctor said to me, Mr. Reid, you know what to do? I said, yes, sir. And then he said, go home and take your belly out. So that when the first morning I use exercise.
That's the Health Report this evening in Primetime News. And now for today's healthy living tip. Once your doctor gives you the go-ahead to exercise, the tips below can help you avoid injuries. Take 5 to 10 minutes to warm up and cool down properly. Plan to exercise slowly and boost your activity level gradually, unless you're already exercising frequently and vigorously. Be aware that training too hard or too often can cause overuse injuries like stress fractures, stiff or sore joints and muscles, and inflamed tendons and ligaments. And hold off on exercise when you're sick or feeling very fatigued.
And we now go to news overseas. Emergency responders have recovered over 300 bodies following Monday's deadly mudslide on the outskirts of Sierra Leone's capital. Around 600 people are still unaccounted for. We go to the CNN for the very latest.
Mount Sugarloaf sits above Freetown. When you go there, you'll be struck by how all the houses are built in sort of a terrain that goes uphill, and it's the most beautiful sight in the sunshine. But because of the torrential rains that Sierra Leone has been having, the Mount Sugarloaf simply gave way and carried with it all the earth early on Monday morning when people would have been asleep. At the moment, Abubakar Tarawali, the communications guy for the Red Cross in Freetown, is telling us that they have now recovered more than 300 bodies. And it is a fact as well that many of these bodies were dragged down for more than a mile. So rescue efforts are recovering not just bodies, but limbs of people and awful, I'm sorry it's so early in the morning, but decapitated people. And the rescue efforts is hampered by the lack of equipment. I spoke to the Red Cross last night. They said they've only got 2 diggers to try and excavate the fallen buildings. And don't forget, the rain is still falling. So even if you are trying to dig people out, the mud will simply suck you down like quicksand. So at the moment, it's very, very important that they get as much help as they can. And we are also learning that the city of Bo, which is Sierra Leone's second city, has also had heavy rain overnight. But luckily for that city, it lies on a far more flat terrain.
And we're still overseas. 32 suspected drug dealers were killed in shootouts across one province in the Philippines on Tuesday in the ongoing war on drugs. Since coming to power in June 2016, Philippines President Rodrigo Duterte has unleashed an aggressive crackdown on drugs that has left at least 3,400 alleged dealers and users dead. The number of dead suspects on Tuesday is the highest that the province has seen in a single night. In addition to the 32 killed, 107 persons were arrested. And we go now to sports. After winning the prestigious Contender Series, Sakima Mullings is now focused on helping aspiring boxers to develop their skills. Here is Renardo Brown.
It's a case of giving back to the community. And that's exactly what the Contender Series champion Sakima Mullings is doing at the Kings of Goodison Summer Boxing Camp at the Stanley Couch Gym. Mullings is among 6 instructors at the camp.
It's very important for us to be here. You know, it's it's a small way and easy way that we can give back to pass on the knowledge, pass on the things that we've learned to the next generation of Jamaican fighters.
And despite the same local fighters being seen throughout the years of the Contender Series, Mullings says the country is not short on talent.
Jamaica boxing is alive and well. You can see by the amount of interest and the enthusiasm that the youth have here. You know, it's just us as the older generation to provide the platform and the outlet for them to showcase their skill and their talent.
16-year-old Robert Napier stands at 6 feet to 6 inches and at one stage considered basketball before deciding on boxing.
Well, my height and my reach will stop my opponent with ease because reaching boxing pays a lot and help me to develop all of that impact on my opponent.
Brittany McFarlane is one of the females at the camp.
I'm here to learn about boxing because it's a nice sport and it can help you further down in life and you can learn a lot.
Jordan Jackson was just glad to be taking lessons from Mullings.
He's a good coach, a good advisor, and he's really good.
And organizer Kingsley Goodison says the camp, which is now in its 8th year, has already borne fruit.
And I'm here to tell you that we have that aim and objective has been relished. Okay, we have young Jerome Ennis, who represented Jamaica in Bahamas, the Commonwealth Youth Championship, and he came home with a bronze medal. This is history.
The camp is geared towards youngsters between the age 12 to 18. Renata Brown for TVJ Sports.
And that's the Midday News. I'm Vashon Brown. Join us at 7 for Primetime News Package. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, have a good afternoon.
Jamaica's